Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Matt Hancher. I'm the engineering lead for the products that you've been hearing about over the course of the day today. And I am joined here today by an amazing panel of the product leads for these products. Very excited to be back with you here for our live Q&A session. So I'm joined today by Rebecca Moore, our product director, as well as by Patrik from Google Earth, John from the Crisis team, Joel and Emily from Environmental Insights and Earth Engine, and Amanda from Pluscodes. So we'll be answering some of the excellent questions that you've all been asking over the course of the past couple of hours. And if you haven't had a chance to ask your questions yet, don't worry, it is not too late. Just go ahead and click the Ask a Question button right down below this video feed. We'll be answering as many questions as we can live, but the team will also be following up afterwards to share answers to questions that we don't have time to get to today, so don't hesitate to ask. Okay, Rebecca, I know that you will have to leave us a little early to get ready for the exciting surprise we have coming up later in the hour, so I'd like to start out with a question for you. You just returned from COP, the UN Climate Change Conference, and I'm curious, do you have any reflections on that you want to share with our community?
Sure, Matt, thanks for asking. And I suspect that a number of you were there as well. I know I saw some of you there. So a few thoughts. One is, there was widespread recognition that we're in a planetary emergency and we're running out of time. Okay, duh. Also that we face really twin interrelated crises of climate change together with biodiversity loss, and that nature-based solutions can be critical in carbon removal through, for example, forest protection and restoration. People were calling this the nature COP. I think that's very relevant to this Geo for Good community. There were ambitious commitments that were made around eliminating and reversing tropical deforestation by 2030, commitments around methane emissions, coal, really aggressive financing, including 1.7 billion to indigenous people and local communities. So this was good. However, we've all heard commitments before, and they have not always been met. And indeed, in the streets outside COP in Glasgow, you had something like 10,000 protesters with Greta Thunberg saying, hey, this is all just more blah, 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 right? I'm sure some of you saw that famous remark. So that remark was felt inside the COP, and I sensed that there is much more commitment now that we need to move beyond words to action, and traceability, transparency, science-based targets. There was an announcement by the Secretary General of specific mechanisms around accountability. And broad recognition around the opportunity to leverage Earth observation data, cloud computing, AI, satellite data-derived insights and indicators. So I think this is really a fantastic opportunity, and many of you in the audience here are already deeply involved in this. This is the moment for data and analytics, mapping and measuring and monitoring is really being embraced and is critical at this time. I did throw down the gauntlet in one of the talks I gave that as a community, we do not want to be writing the obituary of the planet in ever higher resolution. That in fact, this data needs to be used for action. I have cautious optimism around that we're at that turning point. One last point is there's a lot of momentum outside of the national governments that, subnational players, cities, businesses, investors are also making really aggressive commitments. And I would encourage checking out the group CAMDA, because they are setting up data and analytics standards for how these other commitments will be mapped and measured and monitored. So lots of opportunity for our community. And we hope our tools will continue to be helpful. All right, back to you, Matt.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Joel, I wanted to turn to you for a question from our audience earlier today on the topic of Earth Engine. Erna L. asked about the commercial version of Earth Engine and whether it will have any different features than the free version. What can you tell us about that?
Thanks, Matt. So from a features and capabilities perspective, free version and the paid version of Earth Engine are very similar. And as I mentioned during the presentation, Earth Engine will continue to build impact-oriented features, and we hope those will be helpful to all of our users. That said, with the commercial version of Earth Engine, you do get enterprise terms, which means you can use it for commercial applications. You get service level agreements or SLAs, among other things. You'll also be able to pay for resources. So we have a full Earth Engine AMA tomorrow, Ask Me Anything, and we're happy to go into more depth at that session. With that, Matt, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, thanks very much. So we also got a bunch of questions about Earth and especially about some of the new content creation tools in mobile Earth. So Patrik, I wanted to toss this over to you. Maybe just for starters, can you tell us a little more about those mobile data collection features?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Matt. Hey, everyone, I'm Patrik. I'm a product manager on the Google Earth team. Yeah, like Matt mentioned, we saw quite a few questions about mobile data collection on Earth Mobile during the Google Earth Plenary. However, this initial version of Earth Mobile Creation Tools does not support traditional mobile data collection tools such as custom forms or structured data inputs. For professional data collection, I urge you to check out Ground on groundplatform.org, which is an open source map-first data collection and analysis platform built to seamlessly connect the offline world with cloud-based storage and computation. So again, that's groundplatform.org. To try out the new version of Earth Mobile Creation Tools, please sign up to be an Earth Trusted Tester. You'll get an email today to learn more about how to sign up. Back to you, Matt.
Awesome. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier this morning, there's a whole bunch of features that are going to be available to trusted testers, so definitely encourage you to check that out. Let's see. Next up, I have a question about Earth Engine, and I want to toss this over to Emily. This is a question from Sarah S., who was asking about how to work with Earth Engine for data that may not be already right there in the public data catalog.
Yeah, Matt, absolutely. So the data catalog is a critical component of Earth Engine, and it's one we're improving all the time. So we really want to hear your data set requests and what you're using the data for. So if you have a specific data set request, we have a form that we will have you fill out, and I can paste the link in the bottom of this link, this video link, and I will also add it as a resource as well. If you can just fill that out and include more context about what you're doing with the data set, it can help us prioritize the requests and understand how it will be used. Back to you, Matt.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So let's see. Let's move on to the subject of crisis response. So John, this one will be for you. And we have a question from Erna L., which is about flood alerts and whether that applies to all countries. I think they were particularly curious about flooding in Indonesia. What can you tell us?
Thank you, Matt. So Erna is referring to our flood forecasting initiative, which uses machine learning to develop accurate, reliable flood forecasts for countries that need it most. And we've started that journey with India. And earlier this year, actually earlier this month, we've talked about how we're adding support for river flooding in Bangladesh. To get these flood forecasting information alerts out, we work with local partners like India's Central Water Commission and the Bangladesh Water Development Board. These currently cover an area with about 360 million people. And to date, we've sent over 115 million alerts. Of course, that's not enough. Flooding is a thing that happens around the world. I'm currently in Seattle, and we're actually dealing with river flooding in Seattle right now. And we are working on expanding it to more countries, especially in South Asia and South America. For latest, we've just published a blog from our research team on our keyword blog. And we'll provide that link so you can take a look, or you can Google it for yourself. The title is Expanding Our ML-Based Flood Forecasting. I would really recommend you take a look at that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Let's turn now to the topic of the Environmental Insights Explorer. We got a few different questions on that. And Joel, maybe you can help us out here. Barrett asked a question about whether the Environmental Insights Explorer is freely available to universities. And Amika asked a question about what the criteria are for making data available for different cities. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so Environmental Insights Explorer has several hundred cities and all of their EIE data available on the public site for EIE. And these are cities that have all proactively told us that they're okay with their data being shared publicly. So if you're a university to the first question, that data is free. You can go and use it according to the terms of service and analyze that data, do research with it or whatnot. The second question about criteria, so EIE is really focused on helping cities take action to fight climate change. And the key emphasis there is on cities. So the criteria for accessing data for a city requires that anyone that gets access actually needs to be working for the city or a consultant working with the city. And because of our focus, because of the urgency that Rebecca talked about, we're really staying laser focused on helping cities and making that data available to them primarily.
All right. Just in case any of you are just joining us now, I wanted to remind you that it is not too late to ask your own questions. You can just click the Ask a Question button down below this video, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions today as we can. For the moment, I wanted to bring up another question about Earth Engine, or really about the related project known as Dynamic World. So Emily, a question for you on this. Is this data available as a layer in Earth Engine? So, yeah, what's up there?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Absolutely. So we're thrilled to see all of this excitement about Dynamic World. Obviously, it addresses such an important use case. But the best I can say right now is that we're having an entire session about this tomorrow, and we're going to kind of go through the latest on Dynamic World there. So be sure to tune into the session tomorrow. That's
great. And yeah, I'm really excited about all 5 of these thematic sessions that we have coming up. Let's see. Let's come to plus codes. Amanda, we have a question here from Richard M, who's asking about plus codes. A plus code with 3 characters after the plus. So we're getting into a technical question here, but that covers an area of less than 3 by 3 square meters. It's not bad, but not good enough for some applications where you want to identify locations that are even more precise. What are our options there?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So you're totally right that 3 by 3 meter is what you get with +3, but plus codes also has the ability, you can actually add 4 characters after the plus. So in that case, it represents an area of approximately 1 meter by 1 meter. And so this is something that is decided upon by the addressing authority that's doing the addressing project. So for example, when we worked with addressing the unaddressed on slum addressing in Calcutta, they chose to use +4. So you might see some of those boards in our videos and so forth, where they really needed that extra precision given the housing density. Back to you, Matt.
Awesome. Okay, Rebecca, I know you have to leave in just a minute now to get ready for a special guest. So first of all, thanks for spending this time with us and for your thoughts on COP there. In return for getting out early, I don't suppose you can give us any hint about the guest?
All I will say is it is a musical guest. And once you experience this musical guest, you will understand why he is perfect for Geo for Good.
All right, super. Delightfully enigmatic. Looking forward to that. Thanks again, Rebecca. And let's turn to another question about environmental insights data. So Joel, this one's back to you, and it's a question about getting the possibility of getting environmental insights data at the country level for different countries.
Yeah, so EIE hasn't released any country level data yet, given our focus on subnational players. It is something we've thought about. And if you have context that you want to share about how that can be impactful, how that can make a difference, please go to the EIE site and leave us your comments. We'll take a look at it and continue to try to figure out whether that's something that EIE can really help move the needle on by releasing that country level data.
And Joel, while I have you here, we have another related question. Can you just say a little more about what cities are already available and what cities might be under consideration?
Sure. Hundreds of cities have used EIE and made that data public on the EIE site. And many more than that have used EIE in what we call the Insights workspace. They've logged in, they're working with their data in a non-public site, and they haven't made that data public yet. And I think, as I mentioned in the session earlier, EIE has data on 10,000 plus cities at this point. So around the world, there are cities who can log in or apply for access, log in, and start working with the data to help take action on climate change.
Thanks, Joel. So let's shift gears back to the world of crisis response. So John, I'm going to toss this question to you again. It's a question from Brandon, who's asking about whether during crisis response, Google is able to offer designated evacuation routes or help people, move around when they're dealing with hurricanes or tsunamis.
Thank you for the question, Matt and Brandon. That's a multi-part question. So a couple of things. One is evacuation is a really stressful time for our users. And we know a lot of people not only use Google Maps in their daily lives, but they rely on it at times of crises, trying to get out of a zone, evacuate, as you asked. Today, we do not have evacuation routes or zones in our product, but it's definitely one of the areas we're looking at. We're trying to learn more. We're trying to learn what our role is, how we can be helpful in times of crises. So I don't want to really just throw it back to you, but I kind of will. In the next few days, as you're engaging with Geo for Good, please let us know specifically around evacuations. How do you think we can be helpful? What are the kind of things you're looking at from Google, specifically for Google Maps? What are the scenarios that you find yourself into? What are the things that you care about? Learning that from you directly during this Geo for Good in any of the sessions around crisis or any other sessions where you type in questions will really help me and the product team to put our plans together and go figure out what we can do. Second part of your question talked specifically about tsunamis and earthquakes. That is also an area we're looking into as tsunamis related to earthquakes and otherwise are becoming more common and affecting more areas where people live. That's something we need to add to our product. And we're looking at data sources and availability of information around the world for that. I don't have any updates to share right now, but very much noted. Thank you for asking the question. Back to Matt.
Thanks, John. Patrik, let's go over to you for a question from Wang Ning about Google Earth. They were asking about the relationship between Google Earth Pro and the newer platforms on web and mobile and iOS, noting that there are a lot of great power tools in Earth Pro, but it's organized around local storage, which has limitations. What can you say about these different products today?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Earth Pro is an amazing product. We don't have any plans to deprecate it or anything like that. We're actually adding more small features and fresher imagery to Earth Pro as well. We'll continue to maintain it. But we're also investing on the new web and mobile platforms and believe that the cloud-based features will continue to add value for you all. And we want to make sure that we can add your must-have features on these platforms also. So big thanks to all the people who signed up for the user sessions at G4G. We really want to hear about your workflows and your key features. For storage issues with Earth Pro, we know working with large files on Pro can be hard. And we're looking into that and what a cloud-based server-side solution could look like to alleviate working with some of these really, really heavy files. We also recommend you to come to the Geo for Good office hours, where we can help troubleshoot any issues that you might have. Back to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Patrik. I have to say I'm really excited about some of the Earth features that we've been working on in the Earth web that bring some of those power tools into that cloud-based environment. As a user, I'm really excited about some of that. Let's see, Joel, I want to toss a question to you. This is a question from Sebastian. And it's a question about environmental insights and whether any of the code behind those insights is available as open source, for example, or how we approach that.
Yeah, so I think we do a lot of work to build trust in the data that EIE is producing. We don't publish the code, but we do publish really detailed methodology on how we're producing those numbers. And we also work really closely with third-party experts on this to validate the accuracy of the data that we're producing. So for example, EIE publishes estimates of transportation emissions for different cities. And that's based on analyzing tracks, location history tracks of where phones are moving for people who have elected into that program to make their location history data available to Google. We do a bunch of analysis on that, which includes machine learning, aggregate that at a city level, break it down in a few ways, while all the while maintaining privacy and security. And then we worked really closely with cities and with third-party experts to validate that what we're producing reflects the real world. That methodology documentation is published in detail on the EIE website, and would welcome you to go there and check that out. And additional questions also, you may sort of provide those to us through the website as well.
Thanks, Joel. Patrik, a question for you. It's very exciting to hear about the mobile content creation tools that are coming to iOS right now. What about Android? When are these features coming there?
They are actually also going to be available today. So you'll actually be able to access them on Android as well for trusted testers.
Wonderful.
So good news.
Okay. John, back on the crisis topic, a question from Jenny B, who's asking about the fact that it's not just the big crises that where it's important to get information out. It's the small crises too, local seasonal floods, landslides, earthquakes. I wonder if you could comment on up-to-date imagery and other crisis information for all those smaller crises as well.
Thank you, Matt. And Jenny, I genuinely could not agree more. Crisis imagery after all types of crises, especially the ones that affect sort of how the world looks, as you said, floods, landslides, and earthquakes, is extremely important as part of our crisis response. We are exploring ways to provide updated imagery for more crisis events and locations, and hope to have more on that in the future. I don't have anything to announce on that, but definitely agree with you. For now, though, one thing that I do want to talk about is accessing updated images of many crisis locations is possible with the historical imagery tool in Google Earth Pro. So if you've not looked at that, it is quite powerful to see the historical images over time, especially if it's around a specific crisis location you're looking at. If you have updated imagery available, it should show up a few weeks to a month or so after a crisis event. So while there's nothing in the Google Maps product, there's something to look into the Google Earth Pro. And over time, I hope to have more to share on this topic. So back to you, Matt.
Okay, let's see. A question that is about a feature request for Earth Engine, which is a request for the ability to see in Earth Engine the date of the underlying imagery, much like you can in Google Earth. And I will just say I think that's a fantastic feature request. And we'll take a look at what might be involved in doing that. Along those lines, we do see a lot of questions coming in that are pretty specific to individual products or even very specific use cases. And I just wanted to take this moment to plug the office hours that you can sign up for later in the summit, where you can actually work directly with experts in these products to help dig into the issues that you may be encountering and hopefully get you over some hurdles. Let's see. Question for John about fire perimeters. Can you just say a little more about how they're updated? Are they updated just based on satellite data, or is there a predictive component, or how does all that work?
Well, thank you. That's a topic all in itself that we could go into. But to simply say, today they are generated in Earth Engine with satellite data from GOES satellites, and they're not predictions. They are actually looking at the data that we have currently updated within the hour or so to provide a calculated boundary from real data. We've last year published a Medium blog post that I hope we get to share as part of the resources in this G4G that talks about how we actually go about calculating it. The new wildfire layer in maps that we launched a couple months ago includes not only these boundaries that we've calculated, but also includes data from our NIFC, the National Interagency Fire Center data as well. For larger fires, we have boundaries, as I said, through satellite data. And for smaller fires, we only have a pin in the rough location of the fire giving you information. We, in the future, want to go into different areas. Fire prediction is a very sort of hotly engaged area of fire detection in the scientific community and the industry. But we don't have any of that capabilities today. So we're going to stay with our satellite fire boundary detection that we have launched last year. Back to you, Matt.
Thanks, John. question, actually a bit of context for this question, as you may have noticed, we're doing this Q&A session live, but a lot of the product talks this morning were pre-recorded. And so this is a question about what might have actually happened since those recordings were made. There were some new news items that came up, and Emily, I was curious if you could mention on the Earth Engine front. I know there have been some new developments around the Planet Nick-free imagery, for example. I wonder if you could say a little more just about that program in general, and some of the work that we've been doing with Planet to help monitor tropical forests, and also anything else that may be new news since we recorded those pre-recorded sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I will just call out that we mentioned a new feature in terms of the Earth Engine apps, where we are no longer considering them experimental, but we are considering a full launch of Earth Engine apps. So we removed the word experimental, and we also added a new feature where you can add a hero image to your Earth Engine app. And we actually launched that this morning. And along with that is kind of a Medium blog post that shows some of our most impactful Earth Engine apps that includes this new feature. So that's an exciting thing that we did live today. On the Planet dataset that you mentioned, there's actually going to be, again, an entirely separate talk on that with Tara from the Planet team, where you can hear much more about sort of the use cases and details about that program. Back over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Emily. While we have you, a question came in about Landsat 9, which, as you all may know, just launched recently. And the question was about when that data would become available in Earth Engine. I know that every time they launch a new Landsat satellite or any satellite like that, there's an extended period of what they call commissioning, where they actually get the spacecraft working properly, get all the ground data systems working properly, and tune everything before that data actually starts flowing out. So certainly we won't have data until that process is complete. But Emily, I don't suppose you have any more news on what we're expecting there?
I don't have anything specific, but obviously, as this is a major program for us, it will be something that we will look into processing as quickly as possible, as we've done with sort of the other Landsat updates that have come out this year.
Absolutely. I mean, Landsat was really the data set that started it all, 12, 13 years ago, when they decided to first make the Landsat data archive available openly. That was part of what prompted us to figure out, all right, how do we build a platform that's going to help everyone process such a large data set effectively? So we'll definitely be working to bring the Landsat 9 data in as quickly as we can. Let's see, a question, since we're soon going to be shifting over into our thematic areas. I wonder if anyone here has a session they're particularly excited about. Maybe Patrik, is there anything coming up that you want to highlight in particular?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about the crisis program later this week. That's going to be really exciting to see and hear how users are using tools to help during crisis. And I'm also really excited about the user sessions, just to listening in and hearing how you all are using our tools to better do work. So that's really excited about that one.
John, how about you? Anything you're particularly excited about in the crisis session coming up this week?
I was going to say, Matt, maybe I'm a broken record talking about crisis, but I'm really excited about the crisis program. It's a new program for Geo4Good this year. It's on Thursday, and there's going to be a lot of really, really cool talks. One of the ones you might want to look into is the one that I'm very excited about is Brandon Williams from the Eagle County government in Colorado. They're going to be talking about their use of My Maps and Google Earth in their crisis operations. He has some really good tips to share on how you can start bringing some of these tools to your response workflows. Mainly because, at Google, we try to do a lot, but really it's those local authorities, the local organizations that are making the most impact on the ground. So join in for the crisis program. Be sure to check Brandon's keynote. And I'm looking forward to that whole program on Thursday.
Yeah. All right, so that is about all we have time for today for the live Q&A. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and for asking such great questions. Thanks, Rebecca, Patrik, Emily, Joel, John, and Amanda for coming on live to answer them. Soon, we're going to shift gears to those 5 thematic sessions, starting with climate science and communication in just a couple hours. So please do stay tuned for that. And every year we love to take a group photo with all of you, our amazing Summit attendees. So we're keeping that tradition alive. Please stick around to join the group photo. Details will be posted in the agenda. But before that, we are excited to welcome that very special musical guest that Rebecca alluded to. They'll be starting in just about 5 minutes. So we hope to see you there, and have a wonderful summit, everyone. Thanks so much.